So I'm gonna make a beanie with this design on it, and I'm gonna show you how I do it. So I've got my yarns here. Questionable color choices. I don't have any of the colors that I initially planned on using, so let's see how it turns out. So the first step always is casting on. This is the last pin, so right next to it is the first pin. That's the one that we're gonna start with. So take your main color, so I'm gonna be using this brown, and just leave a bit of length to drape in front of it. You're gonna hook that pin like that, go behind the next one, in front of the next one, and you're just gonna alternate in front and behind all the way around. Okay, and now you're at the last pin. You should be behind it, and put your yarn into the feeder and into your tensioner. I almost always use this middle one, this middle tension here, but it's all trial and error. I definitely recommend making plain beanies first before you try these designs, just to get the feel of it. Okay, and now we're gonna start here. The design starts on row 11. These are the rows, and these are the pin numbers. So it starts at row 11. So I'm just gonna crank some rows until I get to row 11. And this cast on row doesn't count as a row. So when you're done with that, then you set your counter to 0. And from this point, you go up to 11 rows. All right, so now that we are where row 11 is, looking at the graph, pin 9 is green. So we're gonna go up to pin 8. It's hard to see in the video and in real life because the numbers are the same color as the, oh, excuse this, what in the world? It's funky. I used the heck out of this thing, okay? But you can see the numbers here. And so we are going to stop at pin 8 with this brown yarn. Okay, so right here is pin 8. To change colors, there's a lot to look at here. So that's why I definitely recommend making regular beanies first. So this right here is pin 8. You can't see the number because it's behind that right now. So pin 9 is where the color is going to change. So I need to make sure pin 8 has that brown yarn. And then you also need to make sure that this yarn here has already gone underneath here. So now we're going to get the yarn that we're going to change to, and you're going to tie it in between pin 8 and pin 9. I just tie a regular knot with the new color. I cut the old color, tie the new and old color together, feed this new color into the yarn feeder and into the tensioner, and then make sure this pin grabs that new color yarn. And then you're also going to want to make sure your knot stays on this top side of your project. Don't let it go underneath. And looking back at our graph, it is only pin 9 that's green. So once pin 9 has it and this yarn goes underneath there, then we're going to switch back to brown. So this is pin 10 right here, and that needs to be brown. I'm taking the brown, and same thing, I'm just putting it through in between pin 9 and 10 because I want 10 to be brown. Tie a knot, cut the old color, tie the old and new color together, reinsert it into the yarn feeder, and there we go. And so now we skip a row, so all of row 12 is going to be brown, and then on 13 we go back to the pattern. Go slowly when you get by these knots and make sure they're staying on the top side of the project while it's in the machine. Once it's finished, it's going to be on the inside, but for right now, it's going to be on the top. Just go slowly around those knots and make sure they don't get pulled into the machine. And so on row 13, we got to stop the brown yarn at pin 7. So now attaching the new yarn. Cutting the old yarn, tying the new and old together. And it's just pins 8, 9, and 10 that are green. So this is 8, 9, 10. Make sure your knots are where they're supposed to be. All right, and then in between 10 and 11, I'm gonna switch back to brown. So now for this design, every other row has the pattern. And so when you're in these in-between rows, be careful of the knots of the previous row. And you're just gonna repeat this all the way down. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to bump you. If you wanna screenshot this or something and make your own, this right here is just a little mistake. But this is also how you can design any design that you want. Like I said, each of these is a row on the machine, and each of these is each individual pin around the machine. And this works for any machine, any size machine. Just the smaller size machines, the tensioning is kind of different. The accessibility of being able to get to these, you know, if you know what I'm talking about, if you have the little one with like the rabbit ears, it's kind of complicated, but it all works very similar. The same principle can apply to all of the knitting machines. And so you can, you know, make any design you want. The simpler, the better. The more complex, the tighter the tension is gonna be and the bulkier the hat's gonna be. So the simpler, the better. And here's my first little Christmassy design that I'm going with this year. And so just to show you, as I'm going by all these knots, I just pull on the tails as I'm going by. See how they kind of get on the side here? Just pull the tail, like, hey, get in place. I totally just messed up. I started doing this row here in green instead of changing back here where I should have. I just didn't change it right here. Oh no. Painful. I will be starting over. So I'm just gonna snip this, take the yarn out of the feeder, and just run it through. And it's just gonna pop it off of the machine like that. Okay, so I'm gonna restart this with tears in my eyes, and then I will see you at the next step. I just wanted to point out real quick too, the reason why I have this black mark on here. Because you can't really see the numbers on the pins and they're all the same color, that way you know that first pin is coming. So like when you're in the zone, you know, it's easy to be like, okay, I need to pay attention at this point. And that way you don't miss these pins here. I've made it to the trunk part, row 29. I'm going to use this color to be my trunk. This design is good for scrap yarn because it doesn't take much yarn at all for the design. For the main color, I definitely recommend a whole skein of yarn. I think out of these kinds of skeins, you can make about 2.5 beanies. And this is it for the color changes for this design. I do have another video showing in much more detail how I change my colors. I'll put that link in the description. Again, be careful around these knots. Once you get 2 or 3 rows away from the knots, then you can crank it like normal. And now we're going to go to 110 rows, and then we will cast off. As the yarn starts to touch the surface, I just like to roll it up. Sorry to keep bumping you, but I just like to roll it up just to keep, because like if it starts to push, if it starts to lift, then it could lift this off of the pins, and that would be pretty detrimental, especially this far into the project. So I just roll it up a little bit just to keep it off of the surface. And I am about to run out of yarn right at the very end. And so it's gonna look crazy, but just to get this project finished, I'm gonna finish it off with this, and it's gonna be fine because it's on the inside of the hat. So when you see me in this time lapse changing to green, that's what that's about. Look, I'm on row 91 and I need 110, and this is all I have left. But that's good because I have way too much yarn. I'm so excited to be getting some skeins of yarn out of my life. All right, so now we've cranked 110 rows, cut off a tail of yarn, and then you're going to lift this up over this last pin here and just let it chill. You need to crank one more row, go slowly, be very careful that none of these pop off because they are not easily savable at this point. Be very careful to make sure all of these loops get pushed down under these bumps and go around these little teeth here. And don't go all the way around. I like to stop around this part here. And then you're going to take your yarn needle and this tail that you just cut, thread it through your needle. And then starting with, so here's the teeth that this tail is coming out of. So starting with the next one, we're going to loop or thread the needle through there. And you're gonna stop here because see how if you get too close to here, the machine starts pushing the yarn up. So if you start back here, those little mechanisms aren't pushing up at this point. And especially for the first few, you need to be careful. But then once you get a couple of them off these little teeth here, then you can do more at a time and the process speeds up. as you go, they should start coming off of these. Get off. And so now see, I just did 2 at a time. And yeah, once you get a few of them going, then you can get in a groove here. And I just kind of grab them with my thumb so that they don't slip off of the needle. And then also these fingers here, just kind of a habit to make sure the yarn doesn't slip off of the teeth before I'm ready. And so I'm just collecting all these loops on here to thread onto that yarn. All right, and then once you have the last one, make sure they're all threaded all the way through. Get rid of this machine. Unroll your crease. This is so ugly, but it's on the inside, so it's okay. Unroll the beanie, or the tube at this point. It's not quite a beanie yet. And then you're gonna stretch it. I like to do it this way because I like to be surprised to see my design. Even though I pretty much know what it's going to look like at this point, it's still cool to see. And voila! Yay! And then we just do the beanie process. You're going to fold the tube inside of itself. Of course, making sure your design's on the outside. Starting with this inside one. I guess it's good that I ended up having to use a different color so I can demonstrate this a little more clearly. But you're just gonna cinch up this end here. Just like that. Sometimes it likes to roll up. Just make sure it's not rolled. Cinch it up, and then where, oh, here. I get my yarn needle. And I just weave this tail through the circle a couple of times just for some extra security. Sometimes you gotta finesse it through these stitches. There we go. And then same thing with the top layer. Make sure this tail stays on the outside. That's not the end. Find the end, or beginning, whatever you want to call it. Where the heck? Okay, here we go. And then you're gonna cinch this up too. And see, this is what I mean by it kind of curling. Just make sure it doesn't curl like that. There we go. And then same thing. I'm just gonna put this yarn through a few of the stitches for a little extra security. Keeping this tail on the outside too for now. And then once I have both tails woven through, then I tie the two tails together. And that connects the two ends of the tube together to keep it in that beanie shape. And I just do a knot here. Double knot. And cut some of this extra because it's just kind of unnecessarily long. And then weave both ends through your needle. And then I stick it through this hole here to get it through the other side on the inside. And here I will tie, whoa, that's not in the middle at all. I like to get it to the middle on both ends. Showing off for the camera at this point. Okay. Just another little double knot real quick. And then to get rid of these, one more time on the needle. And then stick it through the stitches and just stick it in between the two layers of the beanie. Pull it out through a random side. Cut. And then when you straighten it out, that tail will disappear. And there you go. And so I also made a similar design. I hate this yarn. It's so ugly. But I just wanted to see, because it reminds me of like a melted candy cane all over a toddler's face. And so I'm like, oh, let me make a candy cane. But I don't like the color, but you get the idea. And so on that note, I do have these written out on a easy to follow, easy written out pattern. And they are available on my Etsy. And this is what the candy cane one will look like. Of course, use any colors you want. The Christmas tree. And there we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. Ask questions. And I love this stuff. I'm obsessed with this stuff. I love to help. Ask any questions you want. If you make your own, my Instagram is @savjelly or @jellyisdizzy. I am active on both of them, and I would love to see your projects.